Welcome in, guys. We've got a great show lined up for you. It's all about Canada. Yes, the topic, the team we love to talk about. And I'll tell you what we're going to go through. Here's the list. We're going to talk about the squad, first of all. My thoughts on the squad. We're going to talk about a fun fact about my first ever Team Canada soccer assignment. When, where, and when. A long time ago. Then we'll talk the last 10 games of Canada, the form. We'll talk about warm-up games. We'll talk about Canada versus Panama, the game coming up. Predictions on Panama, predictions on Canada, and a little bit of the form from Panama there as well. We'll talk about USA-Mexico, and then we'll talk Phil Neville and Richard Shaw, just appointed to the Canadian national team training staff. I'll give you my thoughts on that one. And hey, by the way, don't forget, like, subscribe, and like. And leave your comments down below, poets. You know it makes worthwhile reading. And hey, we've got to start the dialogue. So it's Canada. It's getting into the Nations League. Let's get into this right now. Welcome in. So the squad is what we're going to talk about. First of all, we're going to keep this clicking in along at a real good rate so you don't get bored. We don't want you to get bored. And hey, keep remembering, like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below, guys. You know what to do. Anyway, talking about the squad, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on the squad, likes, dislikes. Do you think we got it right? Do you think we needed other players in? Let me hear what you're thinking down below. Squad players. And we're going to start now with the goalkeepers. No real surprises apart from one. The guy in the middle, yeah, Tom McGill, Brighton and Hove Albion in the Premier League. He's with a good club, but he's not their starting keeper. Don't be disillusioned, though. He is a fine keeper. Has had time in the lower leagues on loan, etc. in the English game. He has done well, but it's all about whether he gets time. Now, as for Milan Borjan, we're probably going to start with Milan, wouldn't you think? And Dane Sinclair, I'd say he's the next in line, the heir apparent, but don't forget about Maxime Crepeau. Anyway, we like tall goalkeepers in the new game. What I just said kind of doesn't help Crepeau at all. Anyway, that's the goalkeepers. Let's take a look at the defenders, and there's a few guys in there that you expect. There's probably some that you didn't. Anyway, looking at the lineup, you got Cornelius Kennedy, Miller, Vitoria Zator, Dominic Zator from Corona Kielce. I'd say this much. With Dominic, you brought him this far, you might as well put him in a lineup. At least get him in the second half, get him some time, get to know what he's like under pressure, get to see what he's like on the ball, get to see what he's like defending our net. And we don't really want to see too much about the build-up play. Just keep it simple, Dominic, and get through the rounds in the first two games if you can. But I'd say this. We need to get to see Zator. Also, Samuel Adekubi. I like Sami Adekubi. Great player down there at Galatasaray, Turkey. And Alistair Johnson with Celtic. For his first season, treble winner. What a fantastic time to be a hoops player. Alistair Johnson is absolutely the fantastic thing you thought it was going to be. And it turned out better than anybody could have hoped. And then finally, Richie Laryea, much-travelled Richie Laryea. Nottingham Forest comes back home, tail between his legs, and it starts off again with TFC. Now, midfielders. You're looking at midfielders, and it's the same old. But I'm going to say a few things here. Steven Eustáquio, listen, we can't rely on Steven Eustáquio every game. Someone else has to hitch in and pitch in. Atiba Hutchinson coming to the retirement age, yeah? So look for a retirement coming soon. But I say this. Instead of Phil Neville and instead of Richard Shaw, why didn't we think about hiring Atiba as a coach for the future of the national team? I mean, he's a national hero. He's a soccer legend, iconic, proportion. And he's Canadian, and he's given his heart and soul for this country. Absolutely given it all where it mattered. So what about thinking about Atiba being a coach for the future? I would sooner promote within, have Canadians run the Canadian national football team all the way to the top. Every level must be a Canadian moving forward so that we promote from within and we build from within. It's not anti-foreigner. I'm a foreigner at one stage, but I'm a Canadian now. But it's a case of we need Canadian homegrown to start leading this country. Johnny Herdman's doing a great job, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, future, we need to hire Canadian, the best of the best. And Atiba, in my opinion, would be a great coach. Your thoughts? What do you think? Do you think he'd be a great coach? Because I think he'd be amazing. And do you think about the respect, just the respect that the players give him and would give him as a coach? Anyway, that's what I'm saying. So Steven Eustáquio, midfielder, Atiba Hutchinson, Ismail Coney, love Ismail Coney, now at Watford, doing well, did well at Montreal. He's done well so far. He came in a little bit gingerly into the national team, but he's blossomed. He's a beautiful flower, just turning into a butterfly to fly away to greater heights. Anyway, Victor Laturi, Cavalry FC on the day now with Ross County, doing absolutely magic with Ross County. He's really found his feet there. He found his feet with Cavalry FC. I'd say he was one of the better players, and then he left. And that's the thing about Canadian Premier League. If you don't like this statement, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. Canadian Premier League is a development league for everybody else. If you don't think so, look at the players that leave. Also in midfield, Jonathan Osorio, it's going to come to an end one day. It's going to come to an end one day. Maybe Victor Laturi is the guy you want to see play. And coming over from Ross County, from Scotland, Laturi, I want to see Victor Laturi get some airtime here. I want to see him get a game. I also want to see David Witherspoon from St Johnstone get some time too. You know, we always rely on the regular guys, but let's have some of these guys that don't get the time all the time on the field. Finally, looking at the forwards, no big shockers, no big shockers. Cavallini, Jonathan David, Kyle Larin, Buchanan, Davies, and Hoylett. One thing I want to say about Hoylett is coming to the end for him too pretty soon. Been a stalwart player for Canada, been with Reading many years, Reading in England. But it's going to come to an end sooner or later, so watch out for that in the next year or two. And Alphonso Davies says this week that Barcelona didn't want him in 2018 because he was Canadian. I don't know what to think about that. I really don't know what to think about that. I'm really bemused by that. If that's fact, and it probably is, but it probably isn't, I don't know. But if it was fact, my only take was, why would you say that? What do you get out of that situation? I mean, are you smearing Barcelona in some way and you're just a player on the beginning of his career? You know, what do you get out of that? I just don't understand where you're coming from. But anyway, just saying. Now, finally, before we move on, there's a couple of warm-up situations, warm-up games. Now, Canada and the USA, two big teams in the competition, have not had any warm-up games since their league professionals in Europe, etc., finished playing. There's various reasons, but you know what? You can organise games when you need to organise games. And going cold into a tournament, not smart at all. Now, on the other hand, so I said, USA, Canada, no games, right? No warm-up games, no development games to get you ready for competition. Now, on the other hand, Panama played Nicaragua on the 11th, and won 3-2. They were 2-1 down in that game. Nicaragua were winning 2-1 in Panama with minutes to go, but you have to say Murillo got a goal on 81 and Miller got a goal on 84 and literally won at the death of the game 3-2. It was 1-0 at half-time to Nicaragua, and it finishes 3-2 to Panama at full-time. A little bit of a shocker could have been happening there, but the thing is about the Nicaraguan team, they fielded an ineligible player. Cheers, Bruce, to you. Big-time ineligible player. They were warned about it several times, did the research on that one, and guess what? They're not going to the Gold Cup, and Nations League situation is a historical thing of you're not going there either. They've been banned from both. Unbelievably strong punishment by CONCACAF. But hey, they're under the FIFA flag. They've got to do due diligence. And when you field ineligible players and you get warned, and you don't act, and you play, well, hey, you're just throwing sand in their faces. No wonder CONCACAF has banned you from both. So Trinidad and Tobago is going to take their place. So, what am I saying? Panama's had a warm-up game. Now, Mexico. They're getting serious for this. I think Mexico wants to win this competition. They've had two warm-up games. One on July 11th, that was against Guatemala. They won 2-0. And then on the 11th, they drew 2-2 with Cameroon from CAF, Africa. So, Mexico's had warm-up games. Panama's had a warm-up game. USA and Canada, no warm-up games. Let's talk about Canada taking on Panama. Now, briefly talking about Canada, let's take a look at the last 10 and the form. Take a listen. So, taking a look at the last 10 games for Team Canada, last 10 results, not too bad when you consider who we played, and the goal difference of 15 and 15, 0 on the goal differential when you consider who we played in them 10 games. That's pretty decent too, but looking at results, a 2-1 loss to Honduras, a 2-0 win over Qatar, 2-0 loss to Uruguay, Bahrain we drew 2-2, and then just before the World Cup we beat Japan 2-1. At the World Cup, you know what happened, a 1-0 loss to Belgium, a 4-1 loss to Croatia, and a 2-1 loss to Morocco. And Morocco were an absolute revelation in the tournament, if you remember. And then finally, the last 10 games, the last 2 of the 10 I should say, Curacao a 2-0 win recently and a 4-1 win recently over Honduras. There's the last 10, not so bad. And if you didn't know, Canada is ranked 47 in FIFA rankings and Panama is ranked 58 as I speak. Now, talking about predicting what I'm seeing coming down the road with this game, listen, it's obviously going to be a very highly contested game. And I've got to say, talking about Canada first of all, we seem to kind of know what kind of team we're going to be getting, right? You know, like the same old faces will be there, maybe one or two additions later in the game, but this is definitely a serious game. And Johnny Herdman has gone out publicly and said, this is a tournament we need to win. It's a tournament we want to win. So I can't see Johnny Herdman risking too much. I think what you're going to see is a complement of what we saw at the World Cup. A mixture or a blend of that is pretty much what we're looking to see moving on the field. Substitutes as well. Like I said, I'd love to see Laturi get some time and the likes of, but it might not be reality in this one. Might not be reality in the next game. It may well be the Gold Cup where we see those kind of players that are new to the block get some real airtime, but eventually they will. So looking at the game itself, I think we're going to have a cagey affair. I think you can remember the games that we had with them when we won 4-1 in BMO Field, and everybody was just loving it, especially with Alfonso's goal where he kept it in play, he goes down the line and zigzags and puts it in the corner. Like that song I sang back in the day. Alfonso, woo, Alfonso, woo, he keeps the ball in play, destroys Panama's day. Alfonso, woo, Alfonso, woo, he keeps the ball in play, destroys Panama's day. Now, I was singing that with euphoric volume, remembering that game when we took them out 4-1 at BMO Field. And if you remember that one, that was an amazing game. I don't say that that's the kind of game I'm expecting here. I really don't. I really don't. If you look at our form, it's not bad coming in. It's not the best, but at least we've got 2 wins on the bounce since we came back from the World Cup where, you know, the results coming through. You saw that already. But with 2 wins on the bounce, unbeaten, looking for good form. I think that you got to say, if we win this one, do we win it with a clean sheet? I don't know for sure that we can keep Panama off the board. Murillo and Miller have been pretty much in form, and they look like they're going to be hungry for the day. Don't think for a minute that Panama is just coming to turn up. They're coming to win. They are so coming to win. Pasión. They got a passion, and they're coming from a soccer culture, yeah? And it's a very temperamental culture, and it's hot-blooded. And they're in behind the Panamanian team with everything they've got. The players and the fans and the nation is looking for absolute victory over Canada. Can they do it? Yeah, they can. Absolutely. They've got the players to do it. It's all about precision. It's all about patience for Panama. For Canada, it's all about possession. So the 3 Ps, you've just heard it. But Canada's game is about possession and where you put the ball, using the ball to pressure every time you move with the ball. See, the ball needs to go where you're going to pressure the defense on Panama's side if you're going to break them down. And as you saw, there's a couple of ways this can go. You're not always going to get that 4-1 thriller from BMO's Villa, but sometimes you will. I don't see this one. I think at the outside scoreline, if you're talking pro-Canada, I think at the outside you're looking at probably 3-1. This one, though, could absolutely go down to a single goal, in my opinion, either way. So don't think that Canada's going to breeze through this. Not at all. And recently, Panama's had some recently decent form too. So you've got to look seriously for 90 minutes plus that this could go either way. Yes, Canada is a slight favourite. Yes, they should be scoring on the board. And if they hit the ground running, they definitely will win this game. But the difference is Panama's had a warm-up game. Remember, 3-2 over Nicaragua? And Canada hasn't played yet. They've just trained. There's a difference between game fitness and training fitness. The training regime is the day-to-day thing. It's humdrum and it's pretty boring. And there's no testing ground. The testing ground is on the field at the national level. Canada hasn't been there yet. So we've got to say, on the day, Panama's in this. Now take a look a bit about Panama's form. 2022 games. They played 1 win, 3 draws, 1 loss, 7 goals for, 6 against, and they got 6 points from 15. Now, the guys they played against, interestingly, they got a 2-0 win over Bahrain, 1-1 with Saudi Arabia, 2-2 with Venezuela, and a 1-1 with Cameroon. And those were games between September and November 2022, just before the World Cup. So they were playing against teams possibly that needed a game or were looking for a game prior to the World Cup. And in a couple of cases, they got World Cup teams as well. Now, in 2023, they've had 4 games, and the form still stands pretty good. In the win category, 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Goals against 5, goals for 5.7 from 12. So 2023 has been pretty good, pretty proactive. They had a 1-0 win over Costa Rica, a 3-2 win that I just told you about, Nicaragua, who incidentally, as you know, are now banned from the Gold Cup and Nations League. They had a 1-1 with Guatemala, and also Argentina. It was a 2-0 loss in Buenos Aires. That was March 23rd, when Argentina was having a massive kind of second time around post-World Cup celebration. Now, the total for Panama, if you're interested in all the stats so far for Panama, keeping it simple, moving along real quick, the total is over the last 2 years, 3 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses. Goals against, goals for, 12 goals for, 11 goals against. If you're looking at the points categories, from 27 points, I've gathered only 13, so 50%, 500 team, and Thomas Christiansen is their coach. He's Danish. If you look up the stats on Christiansen, he's been there about 41 games. He's won 19 games, drew about 14 or so, and lost about 11, I think. So his stats are in the 49% range. He's a top coach. He's done very well wherever he's been, but he suits the Panamanian style. So I like what I see with Christiansen, and obviously with Panama, they're in this. And Canada fans, I tell you now, you've heard the names Murillo, Miller. Well, those are the guys we need to watch out for. As for our danger men, you know all about our team. You've seen the forwards. You've seen who's in the squad. Check back, check the listings, have a look, see what we got, and that's where we're moving. I'll tell you what, as for the warm-up games, I am a little bit sad that there's no warm-up games, but that's the way it is. Let's take a quick look at USA-Mexico. Now, as for USA-Mexico, I say this. When you're coming into a competition, you really want to have a warm-up game or a friendly international, per se, as they're called. This time around, again, before the World Cup, it was the same, and now it's the same again with the American team. No warm-up game. I think that they need to change that system and get warm for competition, because you're taking on Mexico, the nemesis, the old enemy from since the dawn of time, basically, in this part of the world. And you got to say, Mexico's had 2 warm-up games. I mean, they've had 2 games in recent times. So why doesn't the US get with the program and get a game? And on this one, you got to say, although Mexico has had warm-up games, recently, in recent times, the USA is really sort of having a little bit of a good fortune upper hand, you would say. That may well continue. But I think that the team that has been playing and operating and gelling together back in the international window has a damn good chance of upsetting the American dream of getting to the final. And it's either one of these two that's going to get there. Could it go to penalties? It definitely could. Mexico's not going to rush to win this, and the Americans definitely will try to get the first goal, because the longer this one goes scoreless, the more pressure is heaped on the USA. Like I say, USA is probably going to win this one, is the favorite to win this one. But don't rule out El Tri getting a grip on this game. And if they get the first goal, they'll make it more like the Battle of the Alamo before America can get a goal on them. So I'm looking for the upset to happen with Mexico, with discipline, patience, and getting the single goal, whereas the US, if they get the early goal and start storming, they may well get there. Maybe experience in the old Mexico team would have made a big difference in this game, but nowadays, the parity on age isn't so far away. That's what I'm saying. On the day, USA is definitely your favorite team, but don't rule out Mexico having something big to say about where the win goes and who goes to the finals. Now, before we shut it down, let's take a look at Phil Neville and Richard Shaw, the new Canadian coaches. I know a little bit about both. Take a listen. Okay, where do we start? Richard Shaw, Crystal Palace, big hero. Coventry City, big hero. He played great, was a player with both clubs, did very well with both clubs, didn't win anything, but was player of the year a couple of times. No trophies, what you could say, of any essence, apart from second division championship a couple of times. Not the greatest level, but he was a decent player. Very decent player, very nice guy. Phil Neville, on the other hand, Manchester United all the way. You know all about his career, Premier League titles, etc., etc. 99 team, da-da-da-da-da-da. Didn't stay as long as his brother Gary, and wasn't as good as his brother Gary either. Both definitely top defenders of the day. But at the end of the day, both these guys were defenders, okay? That's what you got to understand. Both these guys, although they had great careers, you can't say that great players they were. They were average players, more to the point. And you can't say that average players in their quality make great coaches, because 9 times out of 10, they don't. And if you look at what these guys have done in the coaching world, there's no prowess. And if you look at what they did with Miami Vice, Inter Miami, Really? I mean, it's all about nepotism and cronyism. That's why I say Miami Vice. But if you look at what they did with Inter Miami, which was pretty much not a lot over the time they were there, didn't win too many games, didn't win any trophies, didn't forward the club in the right direction, basically showed you what they don't have in coaching. Now, why did Canada hire both of these guys? I'm still shaking my head. Like I say, I've got respect for both. But I'm still shaking my head. Was this a step forward? Let me know. Tell me down below. Do you think this was the right decision to make, hiring these two guys? Remember, I said earlier, hire from within. Atiba Hutchinson would have been the right guy, right? But no, we don't hire him in. We hire somebody else. So, again, I'm saying, tell me down below. Poets, I need to hear from you. Was this the right hiring for Team Canada? We need excellence. Excellence to get to the next level. Yes, we got a World Cup coming, and maybe the World Cup coming was the reason why these two want to jump on our ship, because we got a big party guaranteed and they had nothing left. Once they got booted out the back door into Miami, they were looking for a job. Who the hell thought, you know what, Phil Neville has just got fired, we should hire him? How many Uzos had these guys had before they settled on that idea? I mean, come on, there's better out there. I mean, bloody hell, really? Anyway, tell me what you think about that hiring. But anyway, look at the stats, go online, do what you got to do. But their numbers are not the greatest by a million, billion other coaches, and we could have hired a lot better. I think this is a publicity stunt for Phil Neville, mate. Definitely not for Richard Shaw, because he's an unknown in the world. You've never heard of him before in your lives. Phil Neville, yes, you have, because of his footballing career as a player and his terrible recent form as a coach. Think about that, and we hired him, I tell you. Anyway, ending it down, shutting it right down. Got to say, the post-game's coming, so get on to the post-game. And I got to say, one more big-time. Fraser Valley Fanatics, Vancouver FC fans, amazing at the game at Cavalry FC of the Canadian Premier League on the weekend. It was absolutely amazing. But take a load of what I said, have a listen, tell me what you think, drop a comment. Remember, like, subscribe, and like, get into this. Pass it around to your mates. And hey, I'm going to be watching that big game Thursday. I bet you will be too. And there will be that post-game that I just told you about. So get into that, have some fun, and get back at me. And hey, thanks everybody that pushed me over 1,000 subscribers. I am so grateful. And don't worry, the live shows are coming. We're just working on some of the technology behind the scenes, because we've had some technical issues recently, but you would never know about that, would you? Okay, guys, lots of love. Keep it here. Like, subscribe and like. Hit the share button. Pass it to your buddies, to your mates. Let's grow the channel together. And hey, there's a World Cup coming in 3 years in Canada. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. Let's go there with a big family. Cheers.